Okay. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala. Um, there's two surahs I wanted to touch upon, but because of the time itself, we'll see how far we get. But one of them is Surah Fajr, and one of them is Surah Balad. Okay, both coming in sequence of each other. Okay, one of the things for us to really understand here is, the deen itself is going to be made of two portions. Okay, one is, we can say, maybe objectives or ideology. Okay, and the other aspect would be the strategy itself to achieve those objectives. Okay, so one is, okay, this is the goal, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Then the other aspect is, what is the strategy? How is the only way to achieve that? Okay, so if we say, hopefully you guys can see this writing. Here we have ideology. I don't think ideology is the right word, but you can say objectives. Okay, this is what the outcome should be. And then the second one is, what is the strategy? How do we come to that? Okay, there's another aspect, and I'll come back to this. Just keep this in mind. The other aspect is, within the deen, there are solutions. And then, but then you also know there are problems as well. Okay, so if you say this is the Quran, you feed the problems into the Quran, and I'll give you solutions. Okay, so this is one of the biggest mistake that the people make. Okay, that, hey, let's feed our problems into the Quran and let it feed us solutions. Okay, and I'm telling you, this is a big mistake to make. Okay, this is not the correct way to approach the Quran. So what will happen is, people will say, look, we have financial problems. Okay, so hey, what's the solution the Quran can derive for us? They will say, oh, we have political problems. What's the solution that the Quran will provide? Someone will say, we have a scientific problem. Okay, what's the solution that the Quran will provide? And so what they did is, they made Quran into solutions for their own desires, as opposed to looking at the Quran as purely as it should be. And so they will design financial systems, but it's not meeting any ideology or objective. The financial problem is their own problem in their own, let's say, culture or custom. And they're saying, hey, Quran, solve this problem. And so from that, they will read the Quran in a certain way to produce certain solutions. Same thing, for example, okay, we have a problem within the world of let's say, the people mass genocide. Okay, and so we can see this is a major problem. So they will say, our problem is political. The Muslim leaders are not doing anything about it. Okay, so what's the solution? The solution they'll come up with is a khilafah. Okay, we need Islamic leadership. We need Islamic leaders. Okay, and so they derive something, but in fact, this is not what the Quran, this is not the objective of the Quran. Okay, so we'll say we need an Islamic bank, but that's not the objective of Islam itself. We'll say, okay, Islam is scientifically backwards. And so the past century, because of the scientific advancement of the Western world, they will say, okay, we need to prove that Quran is also a scientific book. And so they made Quran all about scientific miracles. But that's not the true objective of the Quran itself. And so the correct way to approach the Quran is to come knowing we don't know what the actual problem in fact is. Okay, so the Quran now gives us what the problem is, and the Quran gives us the solution as well. This is the problem. Solve this problem. And so we can say, the problem with human beings is they always have a superficial outlook to things. They will always look at it from one angle and not the other angle. They will have a single dimensional outlook to it. Okay, and so no matter what, they will never come to the root of the problem. And so we have to come to the Quran and say, this is the problem we need to solve. And this is the way to solve the problem as well. Okay, so when you look at it, ideology is telling you these are your goals. Okay, strategy is saying this is the way to achieve this goal. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. Okay, we need to finance a house. Like, okay, the Western world have advanced and they have come with a banking system. We don't have a banking system, so let's create an Islamic bank. Okay, so we come with a, let's put it in quotation, solution Islamic bank. We'll go to the Quran and derive as many rules as possible that falls under the Islamic bank. What's the problem ideologically? Ideologically, banking system is a capitalistic economy anyways. Banking system is the root cause of the entire world problems, right? And so these people advanced. They created banks, they created interest, they created banks, and then they created IMF, and now they suppress nations under IMF. Okay, and so we're gonna say, let's do the exact same thing. The bank, for example, is supposed to make the rich people richer and then the poor people subjugated to the rich people. We're like, hey, let's do the exact same thing. Okay, did you solve the problem or did you just create another problem? Exactly, right? And so one of the things that we really have to look at is how do we solve the problem authentically? And the only way we can solve the problem authentically is we abandon our problem. This is, and go back to what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming from? What is let's put a P there for a problem. What is the Quran telling us what the problem is? Okay. And then when we say solution, what is the Quran telling us what the solution is? Okay, and then we enact upon that. Okay, instead of falling into this trap of materialism and capitalism and all these other ideologies. And so this is an often problem where people, for example, we don't have, as Muslims, we don't have idols of gold. Like they made a calf, a golden calf of gold. We don't have idols of gold, but the gold itself is our idol now. Okay, we're chasing so much money itself. Okay, and so when we come to Surah Fajr, okay, and one of the things to look at here is some people will say, sorry, I was going to come to Surah Fajr. Surah Fajr is going to talk about this. What are we intensely in love with? Okay, and we need to detach our love from that because we're basing our problems on what we're in love with. Okay? And then based on that, we have this, okay, we're not doing good, or we're doing too well. Okay, or we are honored, we're humiliated. On what basis? On what we love, not what the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, what our desires are. So based on that, we're constantly, Muhammad, can you do me a favor? Can you turn on one of these lights? Yeah. It's very dark in the video. Okay. No problem.
Lucidity on the low speed reflection.
So hopefully it's good. I have the right light coming on.
पीछे से ब्लैंक डाल दें become better. वो कर देगा मोहम्मद. हाँ बस थोड़ा सा और खींचेंगे तो ये नीचे आ जाएगा. Yeah. No problem.
I think that's the video is better. Okay. Okay. There was another point I wanted to make. What are the main ideology or objectives of this religion? Okay. This is the reason for us to discuss this juz. Okay. To reason to discuss these chapters here. Okay, because they will tell us what the strategies are. Later chapters will start to explain the strategy, and in fact, for a lot of the strategy, we'll have to go to the Sunnah itself. The Quran will tell us what these ideologies and objectives are. So, for example, in Surah Naba, we looked at the word taqwa. Okay, then we looked at and we talked about taqwa last class, right? When we're talking about fasting, that taqwa is between fear and muraqabah, that fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and watchfulness that Allah is always watching us. Okay, Then we have this aspect of tazkiyah. Notice the connection of tazkiyah with the word zakah. Okay, it's purifying us. What is it purifying us from? And this is going to be love of this dunya. Okay, then we have, for example, zuhud itself, that you actually disconnect from the dunya itself. Then you'll see, for example, justice and honesty and all these other things. These are the main objectives and ideology of Islam. We cannot be truly just, and of course, there's going to be one major thing is compassion. So this requires us to put effort in. And if we are, for example, now put competition into this equation, we're putting our own objective in this competition for worldly gains. Al-hakum takathur. Okay, they're seeking constant increase. If that's the case, then it ruins the entire system itself. Okay, so the third point I wanted to make is there is systems in place. Okay, this system is made up of parts. The system has parts. So if I take a system or a part of the system and put it in my own system, does that part work? It won't work anymore. Okay, so for example, I take zakah out of the system. Okay, the system is the deen, the system is Islam. I take zakah out and I put it into my own desires. I want to become rich. How will zakah make me rich? Okay, it's going to create more problems than what it's supposed to do in the religion itself. In the religion itself, it solves problems. In my own system, is going to create other problems. Okay, so the parts have to remain in the system. You have to approach the parts as if they're part of the whole system. Okay, the moment you break the part, okay, we're going to make Hajj our own thing. Okay, and the Hajj is a separate thing. And so now what it becomes tourism. Okay, you go there, you take tons of pictures and you come back and it didn't make any changes whatsoever. Okay, take salah out of the system. It becomes culture and a custom and a habit, but it doesn't achieve what it's supposed to achieve. Take fasting out of the system. Now fasting, what happens? I saw just before I came, I saw this video that popped up. Okay, the video is saying, if your boyfriend is Muslim, okay, that's the video. Okay, and he disappears. Okay, she's saying it's only for 30 days, he'll be back. Okay, it's something so you took it Ramadan out of the system altogether. Okay, and so the system the parts have to belong in the system. Additionally, the parts have to follow order as well. Order, I mean by sequence. One cannot come before the other, right? Allah has set up the sequence. So for example, wudu is part of the system. It's cleanliness, but wudu has to come before salah, not after salah. Okay, one of the essential parts is salah itself, but Ramadan cannot be Ramadan without salah. Salah is an essential portion, and then Ramadan comes, and then fasting comes. Same thing for zakah. Zakah is part of the system. It goes hand in hand with salah. Okay, let's go into Surah Fajr. Okay, a few points about Surah Fajr itself. Okay, it's going to talk about major nations, okay, civilizations. Because what is our attraction? Our attraction is to civilization, right? Our attraction is, oh, look at US, this is how big it is. And now, of course, we can see all the flaws within it, but some people are so attracted to that civilization. They are so rich, they are so wealthy, okay? And so attraction become about the nations of the West, okay? But what was the attraction of the Arabs? The Arabs are highly, racial people and tribal people. And so for them is, who were the Arab leaders? Who were the Arab civilizations? And so two of the major Arab civilizations were Ad and Thamud. Okay, and Ad and Thamud were looked upon, and they're being referred to in the Quran because this is what the Arabs looked at. And so one of the things we have to look at is look at this as an analogy. So for example, when we're talking to non-Muslims here in Canada, Ad and Thamud won't make sense to them. Okay, that isn't their civilization. Those civilizations are unknown to them. But what is true about civilization is all civilization follow the same patterns. Okay, all civilization have a rise, all civilization have a fall. Okay, and so the other civilization that's mentioned here is the civilization of the Egyptians, the pharaohic civilization. Okay, same pattern. They built lofty structures. Okay, what happened to them? Okay, for certain nations, Ad and Thamud, we don't know where Ad's creations are. For Thamud, we can see something. Okay, for the pharaohs, we can see something, but these nations and civilizations have disappeared. Those people who built them, the person who built this Taj Mahal doesn't exist anymore. Who he built it for isn't live. And he had this dream of building this another Taj Mahal. Where is that now? Right? The white Taj Mahal and the black, where's the other one? Even that he wasn't able to fulfill itself. And then who's living in the palace he built? He's not living in those palaces. This is the case of civilization. So why are we so attracted to this? Okay, and so the Islamic perspective is okay. Sorry, before I come to Islamic perspective, the issue becomes of self-indulgence. We are rich, so we have to become richer. Okay, so now you can see the problem isn't in the world. The problem isn't solving problems. Okay, so for example, we can easily solve world hunger. We can easily stop this war in Gaza or this genocide in Gaza. We can easily stop, solve the environmental problem. But why don't we solve the problem? It's about self-indulgence of certain privileged rich people. Okay, just so they can become rich, we're not going to stop the killing of these 40,000 or 50,000 people, and whatever it might reach to. Okay, just because we have to serve their interests. Okay, there's this issue of strength and money that we have to amass this level of strength by amassing this money. Okay, there's this issue of pride and nobility that we have to be noble in front of people. We have to have pride in front of Allah, in front of people. Okay, but what is the Islamic perspective? That whatever you have, it's a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, we discussed these attributes so many different times, so I'll skip this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes certain oaths. These oaths, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking a qasam, okay, so what it is, wal fajr, it's an oath by the fajr, by the breaking dawn, okay, walayalin ashr, okay, the 10 nights. Allah is taking Allah is taking an oath by these things, okay, washaf'i wal watr, odd and even, sorry, even and odd, okay, so Allah is taking an oath by it. Okay, if Allah is taking an oath by it, it means that these things are witnessing something. What are they witnessing? Okay, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ الَّذِي هِجْرٍ. Isn't this where the thinking stops? Okay, number one, we see the oath of Fajr, whenever the sun is rising. The 10 nights, even and odd, night as it passes. What's common between them? What's common between Fajr, the 10 nights, even and odd, and night as it passes?
They're all related to the cycle of the innate.
They're all a cycle. It's all a cycle. Okay. Eventually, sun rises up, but guess what? It's going to come back and rise up again. That means it has to decline. It doesn't stay up forever. Same thing. You add numbers and it moves forward. Okay, it's going to be odd sometimes. It's going to be even. It's going to odd. It's going to say it's this cycle. The 10 nights. Some people will say these 10 nights are referring to the 10 nights of Ramadan. Okay, but in actuality, these are the 10 nights of the month. Okay, the first 10 nights, the middle 10 nights, the last 10 nights, and they're cyclical, so they will continue this cycle. Okay, same thing. The night as it passes, the night keeps on moving. Eventually, the night ends. Okay, so nature is an analogy of the history of people. Okay, nations rise, nations fall, nations rise, nations fall, nations rise, nations fall. Everything follow a cycle. Okay, and then why by the dawn? Okay, there is some hope. Okay, why the 10 nights? Okay, so it's the rising and declining of the month. Okay, um, even and odd. In everything, there's odd, and everything has a pair. Okay, and so for example, you can look at someone gets divorced. Okay, but there's opportunity afterwards as well. It's not forever. Okay, and so here's the thing: Allah subhanahu هل في ذلك قسم الذي هجر, a place where thinking stops. This is hijr. Where should our thinking stops? We're looking at things as if these nations will live on forever, as if our houses will exist forever, or as if we will live in that houses forever, as if our vehicles, our cars, our everything will exist forever. And so everything has a rise, everything has a decline. Okay, even like for example, the Prophet's own camel. The companion, they raced the camel once, and the camel lost, and the Sahaba were upset. The the camel of the Prophet ﷺ lost, because everything has a rise, and the Prophet ﷺ is reminding them everything has a decline. Even the Prophet ﷺ himself, even his camel himself as well. And so this is the analogy we need to look at, that everything will pass. So now, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi'ad? Did you not see how Allah dealt with Ad? Okay, Irama that al-imad, the people of Aram and their great stature. And you can say, as physically they were great in stature, or what they were able to achieve as a civilization was a great stature. وَثَمُودَ الَّذِينَ جَابُوا صَخْرَ بِالْوَادِ, and Thamud, who carved their homes into rocks in Stone Valley. How do these ancient people are able to carve rocks? Okay, and so we're more enticed by their scientific or their physical achievements. Okay, but then also, what about Fir'aun dhil awtad? Fir'aun and the Pharaoh building these mighty structures. And look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them awtad. Okay, that they are pegs in the ground. Okay, so you can imagine perhaps the pyramids are designed in that way as well. Okay, they go up, they go down as well. But what did they do? What did these people do? الَّذِينَ اتَّغَوْا فِي الْبِلَادِ, they did transgression. طغى. I have it written right here. Transgression. فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهَا الْفَسَادِ, and then spread corruption on land. Is this what materialism should lead us to? Is this what our worldly success should lead us to? That we're causing more transgression, that we're causing more corruption on land. Okay, Dagha is to exceed all limits, to go beyond the limits that is set for you. Okay, so what does Fir'aun say? What did all these kings say? That we can give life and death. Okay, they will fully exploit all the resources that they can. Okay, so for example, we can distribute the world resources in a way that everybody is fed. But no, we want to eat a lot more than everybody else. We don't want to have that compassion. We don't want to have that sharing. Okay. Then we see the facade of the corruption itself. They make their own measurement of justice. So it's a moral corruption. They said, this is how you should live. If you don't live this way, then you are morally corrupt. This is the true lifestyle. Follow our lifestyle. That's the only way things can be done. And then, well, if you go against our lifestyle, you are the one corrupt. So what will happen with this? Okay, this will lead marriages breakdown. This will lead family breakdown. This will lead community breakdown. This will lead social breakdown. And so the people in power will remain in power because they made their own measurement of justice. If you don't follow us, if you don't put on the neck of the people we want you to put on, you are the corrupt people. So they will say, what do you have to say about Hamas? Okay, every interview has to start with that. Make your position clear about Hamas, that you hate them. That's their measurement of justice. They will put the measurement in place. You have to remain aligned with that measurement. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, look at history. فَسَبَّ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّكَ صَوْتَ عَذَابٍ. They met their punishment. Okay? إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَبِالْمِرْصَادِ. Allah is truly watchful over them. And so don't become so naive that these people will never be punished. Don't become these naive if you're part of the system that I will never be punished. Rather, the scourge of Allah, the scourge of the punishment of Allah will come. There's both. There's a natural corruption, but this natural corruption comes about of moral corruption. When they push all the limits, exceed all the limits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the natural forces will exceed their limits. And you have to imagine now, right? All this environmental changes that are happening, these are because we're exceeding our limits as a civilization. And so punishment will come. And so you can imagine in the past, what were these punishments? Okay, then the Nuh alayhi salam, inna lamma taghal ma, the water itself transgressed. And there's massive flooding to destroy everything. Okay, the sound itself, the wind itself transgressed. So hurricanes and tornadoes are ridding of the civilization. What's happening? That they corrupted. Moral excessiveness led to natural excessiveness, and this is the condition of the downfall of the nations. Okay, and the only reason punishment is delayed, okay, that perhaps it leads to more punishment. Okay, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna rabbaka labil mirsad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watchful over all of them. Okay, Allah is watching. If there is no sin, if there is sin but no punishment, what does that mean? The delay is to increase the punishment. The punishment is so bad, Allah delays them even more, so they're punished even more. Okay? And immediate punishment is because there's a possibility of immediate return. So a believer might get immediately punished, where disbeliever is delayed their punishment. For the believer, their hearts are opened. For the disbelievers, they themselves have locked their hearts out. So even if they get a punishment, the disbeliever will not understand it. Oh, how is there's a lesson in all of this? So if you feel a punishment, this is a lesson for us. And so we should immediately return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seek forgiveness for our sins. Seek forgiveness for our excess. Seek forgiveness for our lack of commitment. Whereas for the disbelievers, we have to understand that their delayed punishment is because they will never take a lesson from that punishment. And so the delayed punishment, so they continue doing what they're doing, Allah will exceed in their punishment in the hereafter. Now, the basic problem we were mentioning. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانِ, as for the man, okay, what are they doing? Okay, they're looking at these civilizations. I want to be this civilization. I want to be as powerful as the civilization. But look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that these people, the problematic thinking, okay, they think إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ, okay, that when Allah tests them with what? With honor. فَأَكْرَمَ is honor, and نَعَمَ is blessings. Okay, when Allah has given them honor and wealth, what do they say? فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمًا. Allah has honored me. What's the problem with this thinking? Hasn't Allah honored you by giving you wealth?
So these are not the measures that are actually that show the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay. In fact, what it is sorry.
Something related to taqwa, right? In
okay. And so we falsely associate our honor with this wealth and this nobility. Okay. In fact, what it is only a test. This wealth and this honor and this dignity in this dunya is just a test. So whatever Allah gives is part of the test, not from preference. Allah gave us clothing, that's a test. Allah gave us food, that's a test. Allah gave us wealth, that's a test. Allah gave us a house, that's a test. Not because Allah prefers you. Because if you really think about it, what did the Prophet ﷺ have in his house? Okay, a man comes to the Prophet ﷺ, says, I haven't eaten for days. Can you give me some food? He sends a message to one of his wife, and she said, Wallahi, I only have water to drink. He sends a message to another wife, Wallahi, I have only water to drink. Another house, all of his wife, what they have in their house is water to drink. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, in another narration for the same incident, he's saying, who will, from the companions, who will feed him? And so companion agrees and he takes him home. When he reaches home, we have to feed Allah's Prophet's companion. This is the Prophet's companion that we need to feed. And the wife says, we have nothing at home except for the food for the children. What does the Sahabi say? Distract them. If they get hungry, put them to sleep. We'll put out the lights at night. We'll pretend to eat while this companion eats. Okay? And so they fed them. And when he comes in the morning, the Prophet says, Allah is pleased with what you have done. Allah is happy with what you have done. Okay? It's not about what we have. It's about who we become. Okay? This one, the Prophet ﷺ drank cold water. And then he says, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. Then on that day we'll be asked about this na'im. Just cold water, and the Prophet ﷺ is reciting that this verse, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. And then on that day, Allah will ask us about our na'im, about our blessings. Food is not about, it's part of rububiyyah. Allah provides this food. Okay? How we eat, what we eat is part of uluhiyyah, how we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's a difference between rububiyyah and uluhiyyah.
Rububiyyah is Allah providing you. Uluhiyyah is you showing thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Looking to see if this is the same hadith. Yeah. We've mentioned a part of that hadith already.
So like that sentence means that like when Allah is giving us something, it's not all for us. It's always we need to give it to others, or like we should always consume that thing.
Whatever na'im you have, you'll be questioned for it.
Okay.
Okay? Whatever blessings you have, Allah will question for it. And from the prophetic perspective, he's drinking cold water and he's saying, I'll be questioned for this na'im.
Look at all the bounties. I guess the entire lesson is all the bounties that we have. And other people who are suffering in the world, they don't. We think that Allah is happy with us. We are being tested. And every ni'mat that we have, even the cold water that we drink in summer, will be questioned. You were given this. This was the test. This is, I mean, it's ultimate accountability that every single ni'mat that we have, we are accountable for it. Health, wealth, children, intelligence, iman, of all the things. That's a blessing. We'll be asked, what did
But
we do?
that means it's not that like if we have something enough, that means we are like Allah is pleased with us.
Yeah.
That's what it means, right?
That means it's a test for us.
Oh.
And we'll be questioned very, very hard. People who were Sahaba who had more wealth were also scared of the fact that
Actually,
they asked more.
you asked the question too soon. Okay, so hold the question. Okay, because the next verse is also coming soon. Okay.
So you're done
Yeah.
with the
No, we're not done with budget.
You're not done
No.
with the
Okay. So, but remaining in the same track, what Allah has given us. This hadith, a man will be questioned. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, a man will be questioned about the blessings and told, did we not give you a healthy body and sweet water? Okay. And another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, there are two blessings that people generally neglect: health and leisure, health and free time. Okay. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, a man will not be able to move his feet until he is questioned about four things: his lifespan, how long you lived for, and how he spent it; his youth and how he drained it; his wealth and how he earned it and how he dispensed with it; and his knowledge and how much he practiced it. So Allah will question you about everything. Okay. Now, I don't think I wrote the verses down. So the first one is فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ. This verse, وَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقٍ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانٍ. فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقٍ, his rizq is constricted. فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقٍ, and he says فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي, my Lord has humiliated me. So they attach humiliation to their risk or their wealth being restricted. And this is all very problematic. The first one is problematic, but this is problematic because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَى. It's a test anyways. Your constraints are your tests. So when you are being deprived, this is not a humiliation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is in fact a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Richness or poverty, there's this test of sabr or test of marhama. I'll explain. Okay, sabr is if you're constrained, you have to be patient. Okay, if you're rich, what are you required to do with your wealth? What are you required to do with your wealth? Marhama means, sorry? I didn't hear.
Spend in the cause of Allah.
Okay, marhama is mercy. Okay, you are merciful.
Like showing mercy on others.
With your wealth, with your advantages, everything that you have. Okay. Where is nobility and dignity? Where does it truly lie within Islam? Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after these verses, he says, Kalla, bal la tukrimun al-yatim. These people, either they're rich, okay, so they say we're honored, Allah honored us, or either they're poor, they say Allah has humiliated us. Okay. But neither place, richness and poverty, wealth is not where the true honor is. So Allah says, Kalla, that's not the case. This is not poverty, is not humiliation, richness is not respect. Okay, what is it attached to? Kalla balla tukrimun al-yatim. But they don't honor the orphans. They're chasing the wealth so much, but they neglect the orphans. They're chasing the wealth so much, وَلَا تَحَادُونَ وَلَا تَحَادُونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. They don't encourage to feed the miskin, feed the poor. Okay. وَتَأْكُلُونَ تُرَاثَ أَكْلًا لَمًّا. They devour each other's inheritance. They will eat their own family members' inheritance, and they won't give that inheritance to their own family members. Whereas, because they're so indulgent with their wealth, they forget who the orphans are. There's no marhama, there's no mercy there. They're so indulgent with they don't care if people are hungry. They're so indulgent with their wealth, they don't even care, meaning devouring each other's inheritance. I mean, that's your own family members. They don't even care about their family member. I don't have this written down. Dr. Hamiduddin Farahi, he says that the first thing that comes after Iman is Salah. Okay, Why is salah comes? Because salah is, if you have iman, you constantly want to remember your God. You want to remember your creator. You want to remember all the things he has given you. What's the second thing that comes? The second thing that comes after that is that you remember Allah's creation. Okay? And because these are the ones who Allah has created out of love and mercy, then you have mercy upon them as well. The second is to give your zakat, to give your sadaqah. Their problem, the problem of this dunya, وَتُحِبُّونَ مَا لَا حُبًّا جَمًّا. I don't know why I didn't write the Arabic down. Okay? The problem of the world is their intense love of this dunya. They're so intensely in love with this dunya that it's okay for other people to starve. It's okay for the orphans to remain dishonored. It's okay for people to die. Okay? But what's the reality? كَلَّا إِذَا دُكَّتِ الْأَرْضُ دَكًّا دَكًّا. When the hereafter comes. Okay? And when the hereafter comes, that when the earth itself, كَلَّا إِذَا دُكَّتِ الْأَرْضُ دَكًّا دَكًّا, when it crushes itself up. The earth itself will crush itself open. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes and the angels come. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمْ. Jahannam on that day is dragged. Then people will wonder, يَوْمَ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّ لَهُ ذِكْرًا. Then they will wonder, okay, then what did we do on this earth? Now they will remember all their deeds. Okay, hell will be brought to people. Now people will remember. Now it's too late. When they had the chance, they didn't do it. So they had we never used our intelligence. Notice how the surah begins. This is where the thinking stops. This is what hijr is. This is where thinking stops. We stop using our own mind. We stop using our own intelligence. Someone says act this way, we act this way. Someone says believe in this, we believed in this. We fail to think through things properly. Someone says this is the economic system, this is the only way things work. So we bought into this whole system of capitalism. And by the way, think about a lot of high schoolers. They have this intense love of capitalism and intense hatred of communism. Why? Because that's what they're being fed. It's the only system that works, and there's no other proven system. And so they only chase those systems that they were fed. And they don't want to think outside that system. Their thinking stopped. Okay? And then they let others, the society, make the decision for us. We let other people make the decision for us. What's the use of remembering now? You gave up on all your faculties. You gave up on all your thinking. You gave up on everything. What's the use of remembering now on the day of judgment? يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِحَيَاتِي. They will say on that day, now I am destroyed. يَا لَيْتَنِي, woe to me. When they see the hellfire, they see the rows of angel, now they will realize this was just a test all along. This is temporary. Anything that is temporary, look at the cycles. The world itself will have a cycle. So you can start off with your cycle of your own human life. Okay, go to the size of the civilization. Go to the size of planets. Every planet starts and they end. Go to the cycle of solar systems. Go to the cycle of galaxies. Go to the cycle of the universe. The universe started. At one point, it will end. Everything has a cycle. And so now they will realize what the true life is. Now they will wish that they have sent forth something. And so now they will face severe punishment like no other as well. فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُعَذِّبُ عَذَابَهُ أَحَدٌ. They will face severe punishment like never before. But then there are certain people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they will say, Ya ayyutahal nafs al-mutma'inna. This is nafs al-mutma'inna. What is nafs al-mutma'inna? It has reached contentment. This nafs, this soul, this inner psyche is content. So, Ya ayyuhal nafs al-mutma'inna. Okay, why is it content? Because whatever it could do, it did it. Whatever possibility it had, it made all the sacrifices. It didn't hold back. It can't say, oh, I kept this for myself and that. There's no dissatisfaction. This nafs, this soul is coming on the day of judgment. It's fully satisfied. It sacrificed everything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to this soul, Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Return to your Lord, well pleased and well pleasing. Radiyatan mardiyah. You have pleased and you will be pleased as well. Allah is pleased with you. Now Allah will please you in every way possible. Fadkhuli fi ibadi. Enter my servanthood. Wadkhuli jannati. Enter Jannah. So which soul is entering Jannah? Is this tranquil and contentful soul. This tranquil and contentful soul gave everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the next surah is about. Okay, this next surah is about this tranquil and contentment soul. How do you achieve this?
In this ayah, is it only referred to Prophet ﷺ or anyone with the
I think anyone who can achieve this. The Sahaba themselves give a story of the Sahabi. Okay, and we'll see in Surah Balad. Okay, how do you become this tranquil soul? Okay, so this Surah Balad, it starts off with the ideal city. Okay, compare this ideal city to Ad, Thamud, what else? The pharaohs. Big civilizations, right? Ad is big constructions, big pegs, big built construction into mountains. Thamud, the pharaohs with their pegs. All of them, Jabu Sakhra Bilwad, strong civilizations. But what's the ideal city? What was there in Mecca when Ibrahim alayhi salam took his family there? Nothing. There's no buildings, there's no structures, there's no anything except for dirt. There's no people. It's completely disconnected. This city is built by our father Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by this city. Look at the comparison between this surah and the previous surah. Previous surah is calling, oh look, civilization, go chase money, go compete in becoming rich. This saying who your true father is. Your true father is, so Allah is swearing, هذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد. His father and his offsprings. What's the foundation of the city is going to be purely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this, who is the walid here? Who's the father here? It's Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay, Ibrahim alayhi salam is described by two things. Okay, ما كان إبراهيم يهودي ولا نصراني. Okay, he's not a Jew or a Christian. Ibrahim alayhi salam is not even a Muslim, not as identity, but purely in practice. He has no belonging to any nation. Okay, what Ibrahim is Hanifan and Musliman. What is Hanif? That he turned away from everything. Okay, what is Musliman? He submitted only to Allah. not culture, not customs, nothing. He's submitting only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Opposite of Hanifan is Janafan. Janafan is to turn away from Allah towards everything else. Okay. So that's the opposite. Ibrahim, Hanifan, he turned away from everything towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who did he turn away from? In fact, when the love of his own son started to come in, what does Allah give him as a dream? Sacrifice your son. Even to that extent. Even when the child is first born, go drop them in the city. Turn away from everything, love of everything except for love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Love of everything else is under the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And is purely submitted to Allah. And perhaps you can imagine this dream isn't actually literal. This dream that Ibrahim saw wasn't a go sacrifice your son, but rather go disconnect from him from a worldly perspective. So Ibrahim submitted to such an extent, I will sacrifice him as well. Okay, that's the interpretation. Ismail said, if that's the interpretation, we will follow that interpretation. Okay, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Man is created in hardship. Okay, kabad is hardship, meaning everything achievement requires hard work. Within life, there's going to be struggle, there's going to be hardship, there's going to be suffering. What's the beginning of the city? All of this kabad. Okay, success does not come with laziness. Success requires effort, and this is both worldly and non-worldly, let's say. Both of them requires effort. Okay, so the claim on the city of Mecca doesn't come by pure belonging, but comes with putting effort in. The hardship of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the hardship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so one thing we realize is man is created with the capacity for struggle. We have the capacity to fully struggle. أيحسب أن لن يقدر عليه أحد. Does he think no one will overcome him? يقول أهلكت مالا لبدا. He says, my wealth is in abundance. Summary of the previous surah, right? My wealth is in abundance. If nothing will overcome you, the death will overcome you. But the mentality is, you created a hardship, but the corruption of our thinking is, nobody can overcome us. That one virus, a small virus, can cause us so severe sickness that we have no control over them. It can overcome us. But why? Because this thing of not overcoming us, wealth is in abundance. أَيَحْسِبُ أَن لَّمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٌ. Do they think no one is seeing them? Do they think no one is watching them? So what do we read in the previous verse, surah? إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَبِالْمِرْصَادِ. Allah is watchful over them. For them, they have pride in spending their wealth. Okay, so they destroy and they waste wealth. But then on the other hand, for the kabad, for this hardship, Allah has given you full ability and full capacity. What is this full ability? Alam naj'al lahu aynayn. Did He not give you eyes? Wa lisanan wa shafatayn. Your tongue, your ability to speak up, ability to talk. Wa hadaynahu najdayn. Knowing between right and wrong. People know what's right and wrong. It's deep inside them, but they refuse. They know cheating is wrong. They know lying is wrong. They know abuse is wrong, but they continue on it. So, and think about it. Aynayn is two eyes. So we're thinking, oh, two physical eyes. Actually, there's two types of eyes. There's the sight and there's the insight. Okay, that you're able to see what the reality behind certain thing is. Okay, for example, we didn't come to existence by ourselves. That's the insight. We can see existence, but can we see our own inexistence? At a certain point, we didn't exist. At a certain point, we will stop to exist. There's insight with everything that we need to have. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Lisana wa shafatain. So we can eat, we can drink, we can speak, we can teach, we can encourage. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجَدَيْنِ. Allah has given us different types of guidance. We can say, Najadain, knowing right and wrong. Najadain, we have aql, we have our own minds, we have revelation alongside with that. We can think about the history, we can think about the future. We have this ability to think. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about a challenging path. فَلَقَتَهَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ. You don't know about, but you have not gone through the hard path. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. What will make you understand what is Aqabah? What is this hard path? Aqabah is this inclined climb that you have to go through. This hard climb that you have to travel. This is the hard work we're supposed to put in. If they only attempt, if they only attempted the challenging path. It's difficult and maybe even discouraging. But human beings are created for this. We have all the faculties for this hard path. We mentioned about the Sahabi, okay, who fed someone else over his own children. Okay, one of the Tabi'in, a companion of Ibn Mas'ud, he loved a dessert. And so his wife was, an expensive dessert. Poor man, because, and when you're a student of knowledge, you go 10, 20 years of studying before you can become anything. Okay, wife is gathering money. Eventually, she can afford the ingredients to make this dessert. That moment when he's about to eat, someone knocks on his door. Yeah, I'm poor and I'm hungry. And what does he do? He gives that dessert to him without even a taste. And so the wife says, if only he knew what he's eating. And the husband says, if he doesn't know, then Allah knows. Okay, think about, there's a beautiful story. Forget the name of a major judge. Okay, became a major judge later on. Okay, but in his student years, his wife says, it's Eid tomorrow. Can you borrow some money for the children so we can buy them some clothes and some food? He goes to his friend. His friend says, I have a sack of gold, and gives him a sack of gold. Okay, he's happy. He returns home. Okay, they're planning on how they will spend this sack of gold. Meanwhile, someone knocks the door. Another friend. He says, can I borrow some money? It's Eid tomorrow. And so the husband comes back to the wife and says, let's take half for ourselves and half for him. And you know what the wife says? How greedy are you? Your friend gave you a full sack, and to your own friend, you give a half a sack. So he gives the full sack to his friend. This friend looks at the sack, looks at the gold, says, where did you get this sack from? He said, from such and such friend. He said, he came to my door and asked for that sack, and I gave him the sack. Okay, the selflessness for others. The selflessness for others. We know the story of Ikramah ibn Abi Jahl, okay, the son of Abu Jahl. When he became a believer, dying on the battlefield, someone runs to him for water. Says, no, that person is hungry, thirsty. Give him water first. They go to that person. That person says, no, that person is thirsty. Give him water first. So they run to that person. And by the time they reach the third person, he has died. They come back to the second person, they have died. They come back to Ikramah has died. The selflessness even in that moment. Are you capable of Aqabah? Human beings are created to have this Aqabah, to be able to survive this Aqabah, this hard path. What is this hard path? What is this difficult path? Fakku raqabah. Go free a slave. Think about Abu Bakr taking all of his wealth and freeing slaves. That wealth that you're going to say, I can build a house with, Abu Bakr is like, I'm going to free slaves with it. He frees some of the most valuable slaves, including Bilal radiallahu anhu. Okay. أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة. Okay. You know what this means? Feeding of someone when you are hungry yourself. Feeding of someone in days of famine. Feeding someone days of hunger. You're not coward that you, okay, I'm gonna go hungry. You feed despite you being hungry. Okay, maybe you won't have food for tomorrow, but today you will share the food with someone else. Okay, yatiman dha maqraba, orphans that are close to you or related to you. Aw miskinan dha matraba, poor that are matrab, meaning they're lying in hunger. Think about, have you seen those homeless people that are just lying there? This is the hard pass. This is the hard pass to make that sacrifice. Okay? ثم كان من الذين آمنوا. Let me read the proper translation here. And then being among those who believe, آمنوا وتواصوا بالصبر. They encourage patience, وتواصوا بالمرحمة. And they advise each other to be compassionate. You know what was broken about all these systems that we live in? It's telling you to compete with each other. It's telling you to, it's okay to degrade someone as long as you're being successful. It's okay to pay someone a weak, low wages as long as you're making your profit and your business is being successful. Well, what is Islam teaching us? Compassion. Islam teaching us patience. Even though you might lose, okay, be patient. For the poor, for those who are being tested, for them we need to encourage patience with each other. We're being tested by poverty, is patience. We're tested by richness, we should encourage compassion. أولئك أصحاب الميمنة. These are the people who will receive the book in their right hand. We have to be at service of other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, or in the hadith, the Prophet says that as long as you are at service of others, Allah is at your service. As long as you're aiding others, as long as you're aiding others, Allah is at your aid. If you give someone a breath, you know what, you're not required to save everybody. What you're required to do is give someone a breath. Give someone a relief. Someone is drowning. Your job is not to rescue them from the drowning. Just pick them up just for one breath. If that's what you're capable of doing. We become discouraged. Oh, I can't save them from the drowning, so you let them drown. But our job isn't that. Your job is one meal. Your job is that one breath. Your job is that one thing that you can provide to them. But then, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, those who deny the signs of ours. What are Allah's signs? Everything that you're capable of. You are capable of. Humanity is capable of everything. Everything that you're capable of. Hum ashabul mash'ama. They are the people of mash'ama, left. They'll receive their deeds in their left. Alayhim narum mu'sada. For them, they'll be enclosed and sealed on fire. Think about it, they'll be put in fire and now they're completely sealed and enclosed. For those who denied the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. The time already? So we'll end here. But we can have a question and answer session as we're breaking our fast.
Rana ho gaya 57 iftar kar lo. Take one more.
Okay.
Three. Two more.
My doctor said I'm not allowed to eat dates.
You have to eat odd numbers. 1, 3, 5. I know, I've got sensitive. I'll get a plate for the kids. The plates के लिए भिजवा दो.
So let's conclude. Any comments, questions? Taha, Omar, comments?
Comments, this was two surahs in pairs, right?
Yeah.
Are mostly surahs in pairs, I guess the last juz?
Most of the Quran is in pairs.
So-
Surah Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, so forth.
Yeah, I think some of the points were very, very extremely important. For instance, we need a doctor, we need an expert, we need, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate creator and the ultimate source of wisdom. So for me, the most profound thing was we should not try to identify our problems and then look for their solutions. The fact that we identified that the problems have to be the problems that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says are the real problems, not I don't have a job, my kids are not doing as well as they should have, would have, I didn't do as well as I could have, would have, should have. All of those things, health, wealth, honor, all of these are things that we think are problem, but I think the actual problems are, and the solution and the problem, both the sources, the Quran. So that to me was very a great sign.
खाना लगा दिया मैंने आपको कल
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you're saying. We sometimes struggle with impatience and also wanting to fit in with what's going on. That struggle to remain relevant, even though relevance is not necessarily where we should start. Like you were saying, it's best to start with what God has shown through the Quran instead of trying to see that relevance as a criteria. It should be like a byproduct. That was what came to me.
Right, my laptop is about to die, so we'll end here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت واستغفرك واتوب اليك. And Omar, Taha, if you have any questions, text us. Inshallah, I'll try to add in and answer in the group. Okay, stop the share first.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.